Tom, it is over. I cannot do this any more. Do not contact me. My lawyer will be in touch. Just like that. 28 years of marriage, 30 years of building a life, reduced to 18 words on a glowing screen. Delivered via text message while I was probably trying to scrub Permatex gasket sealant off my knuckles after closing up the auto repair shop for the night. Cold, efficient, brutal as a snapped axle. What she did not know, what she could not possibly fathom as her thumbs tapped out that cowardly digital execution, was that while she thought she was yanking the emergency brake on our life and grabbing the steering wheel, I had already quietly, legally, disconnected her access to the fuel line weeks before. She thought she was in the driver's seat. She had no idea the engine she was trying to hijack was already running on fumes she could not replenish. My name is Tom Callahan, 56 years old. For nearly 30 of those years, the rhythm of my life has been dictated by the clang of wrenches, the hiss of the air compressor, and the satisfying roar of a finely tuned engine here at Callahan Auto Repair on the south side of Omaha, Nebraska. It is not a fancy glass and chrome dealership. It is a working shop. 2 bays, a third often overflowing into the back lot, an office crammed with invoices and greasy manuals, and the enduring honest smell of oil, gasoline, and hard work. We fix cars. We keep people moving. We do it honestly. We charge fair prices, and we stand by our work. People in this neighborhood trust us, bring us their cars generation after generation. I built this place from nothing, borrowing against the small house my dad left me, pouring every ounce of sweat, every skipped family vacation, every anxious, sleepless night worrying about making payroll or figuring out that damn intermittent electrical short into these concrete floors and metal walls. It is more than just a business that feeds my family. It has my name etched on the faded sign out front, my reputation embedded in every oil change and every engine rebuild. It is me. That Tuesday night started like 1,000 others, a long, grinding day. We had Mrs. Gable's ancient Buick in again, overheating like clockwork despite the new radiator last month. Turned out to be a cracked head gasket, a bigger job than she could really afford, which always makes me feel lousy. Then there was a Ford F-150 with an electrical gremlin from hell that took Mig, my head mechanic, most of the afternoon to chase down. Miguel Sanchez, Mig. He is salt of the earth, loyal as they come, and knows engines better than I know my own face. He finally traced it to a frayed wire behind the dashboard, a tedious fix. Add in the usual parade of oil changes, tire rotations, impatient customers, parts deliveries arriving late, and the phone ringing off the hook. It was just another Tuesday, ending with the familiar exhaustion settling deep in my bones. Mig had finished cleaning his bay, wiped down his formidable toolbox, and headed home around 6:30, calling out his usual, "See you tomorrow, boss. Do not stay too late." I waved him off, promising I would not, knowing full well I would be here another hour or two, wrestling with the mountain of paperwork that seems to breed in the office overnight. Invoices to finalize, bills to pay, supplier statements to reconcile. The necessary evil that keeps the lights on but drains the last dregs of energy from you. It was quiet in the shop now, just the hum of the old soda machine in the corner and the ticking of the big wall clock above the service counter. Around 7:30, elbows deep in a pile of receipts, my phone buzzed on the cluttered metal desk. I glanced down, saw Diane's name pop up. My wife of 28 years. Figured it was the standard check-in. "Are you leaving soon?" "Do not forget to pick up milk." "What do you want for dinner?" We had married young, right out of high school almost. She was pretty, funny, seemed content with a simple life back then. We bought the small brick bungalow in the neighborhood where I grew up, raised 2 good kids there, a son working construction in Denver now, a daughter finishing her nursing degree in Lincoln. Life had settled into a comfortable groove once the kids were launched. Predictable, maybe. A little too predictable, I guess I should have realized. I picked up the phone, swiped the screen to open the message, expecting the mundane. Instead, the world went silent. The ticking clock faded. The hum of the soda machine disappeared. There were only those 18 words, stark black against the white screen. Tom, it is over. I cannot do this anymore. Do not contact me. My lawyer will be in touch. I read it again. And a third time. My brain struggled to process it. It felt like a critical system error, data corruption. The name was mine. The sender was Diane. But the message, it was nonsensical. Ending 28 years? Via text? The sheer brutal efficiency of it was as shocking as the message itself. The cowardice. The utter lack of respect for the decades we had shared. The life we had built. The family we had raised. It felt like being erased with a casual flick of a thumb. A cold knot formed in my chest, a mixture of disbelief and a sudden sickening hollowness. My hands, usually steady even when diagnosing a complex engine problem, started to shake. Shock, cold and sharp, finally pierced through the numbness. Over? Just over? Without a single conversation? Without a warning? Well, that was not entirely accurate, was it? The little flashing warning lights on the dashboard of our marriage had been blinking for a while now, had not they? I had just kept resetting the codes, telling myself it was nothing serious. Her increasingly frequent complaints about my long hours at the shop, hours necessary to keep the damn place afloat, hours that paid for the life she seemed increasingly dissatisfied with. Her sighs about feeling stuck or unfulfilled in our quiet Omaha life. Her sudden embrace of self-discovery workshops and a new circle of friends, mostly women my age or hers, recently divorced or loudly proclaiming their newfound independence, full of talk about deserving more and not settling. Her growing secrecy, especially around money. The new credit card she opened in her own name, explaining it away as just wanting something separate for my little online craft business. A business that never seemed to sell much, but generated plenty of mysterious small charges. The way she would abruptly end phone calls if I walked into the room, or angle her laptop screen away. The way she sometimes looked at me across the dinner table, not with affection, but with an unnerving blend of pity and impatience. I had seen the signs. I had just ignored them, or minimized them, chalked them up to temporary phases, midlife angst, the inevitable ebb and flow of a long marriage. I was busy. I was tired. I was focused on keeping the business running, on paying the mortgage, on putting money away for a retirement that suddenly felt like a cruel joke. I assumed the foundation was solid, that these were just surface cracks. I never imagined the entire structure was rotten underneath, ready to collapse at the slightest push. And then, as the initial shockwave of the text began to recede, replaced by a rising tide of cold dread, another alarm bell started screaming in my head. The money! With a sickening lurch in my gut, I fumbled with my phone again, my fingers thick and clumsy, pulled up the mobile banking app, punched in my passcode with trembling digits, selected our main joint checking account, the account where the shop's profits landed, the account that paid all the household bills via auto draft, the account that should have held a comfortable 5-figure cushion. The balance displayed on the screen felt like another physical blow. $137.14. It should have been close to $16,000. I knew exactly what was in there yesterday when I paid the weekly supplier bills. My eyes scanned down the recent transactions list, heart pounding against my ribs. And there it was, stark, brutal, timestamped just 3 hours earlier, around 4:30 that afternoon. Wire transfer outgoing, $15,500. Destination, an unfamiliar account number at a different bank. She had not just texted me goodbye from a distance. Sometime that afternoon, while I was likely under a car lift wrestling with a muffler clamp, she had walked into a bank branch or logged online and systematically emptied our shared financial lifeblood. The timing was not accidental. The text message was the emotional smokescreen. The wire transfer was the calculated financial gutting. The sheer cold-blooded nerve of it coordinating the emotional ambush with the financial raid. It sent a jolt of pure, unadulterated fury through the layers of shock and grief. The text was the sucker punch that dropped me to my knees. The empty bank account was the steel-toed boot kicking me in the ribs while I was down. She meant to leave me broken, emotionally and financially crippled. But here is the kicker. Here is the critical detail Diane, in her arrogant planning, failed to grasp. Here is why the floor did not completely disintegrate beneath me, leaving me in a free fall of panic. While she thought she was delivering the final, devastating knockout blow, catching me completely unprepared and vulnerable, I was not entirely unprepared. Because of that earlier failed attempt to drain our savings account 2 months prior, because of her suspicious questions about the business finances, because of that gnawing unease that finally shouted louder than my ingrained trust. That near miss 2 months ago, the flagged $30,000 transfer attempt, her flimsy excuse about typing the wrong account number, that had been the catalyst. It forced me to confront the possibility that my wife, the woman I shared my life in bed with, might actually be planning to betray me, not just emotionally, but financially. The thought was abhorrent, sickening. But ignoring it felt like willful negligence, like leaving the shop doors unlocked overnight in a bad neighborhood. So I did something that felt profoundly uncomfortable, almost disloyal at the time. I made that secret appointment with Sarah Jenkins, the lawyer who understood both business and divorce. I laid out my fears, the evidence of the attempted transfer, Diane's recent strange behavior. I stressed that I hoped I was wrong, that maybe it was just a misunderstanding, but that I could not risk losing Callahan Auto Repair, my life's work, my only real asset, the source of my future security. Sarah Jenkins had been direct and practical. Tom, your concerns are absolutely valid. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Protecting the business now, legally and transparently, is not disloyal. It is prudent risk management, especially given the red flags you have described. If she is planning something, she will target the business assets. We need to insulate them before she makes a move. Over the following weeks, guided by Sarah's precise instructions, we executed a quiet but significant restructuring of the business finances. It felt strange, secretive, going behind Diane's back, but Sarah assured me it was completely legal and defensible. We opened a new commercial checking account solely under my name as the owner of Callahan Auto Repair, which was always legally a sole proprietorship. This account required enhanced security protocols, mandatory two-factor authentication for online access, strict limits on wire transfers requiring my explicit, verified approval. We then systematically transferred the bulk of the business's operating capital, reserve funds, and recent accounts receivable from the old, more accessible business account, which Diane might have had some historical, if unused, visibility into this new fortified account. We meticulously documented these transfers as legitimate internal capital restructuring for enhanced security and operational efficiency. I moved my separate funds, the small inheritance from my dad, savings accumulated before our marriage, into a completely separate personal savings account under my name only, again, carefully documenting the source to maintain its non-marital status. We made a conscious decision to leave the joint personal checking account, the one Diane had just emptied, functional but intentionally underfunded, relative to our overall assets. We kept enough in there to cover the usual monthly automated bill payments, mortgage, utilities, insurance, plus a few $1,000s buffer, making it appear like our primary liquid household fund. We did not replenish it with large sums from the newly secured business account. Diane, whose understanding of business finance was rudimentary at best, and who rarely paid attention to the shop's operational accounts, almost certainly remained oblivious to these fundamental changes. She likely saw the familiar ebb and flow in the joint checking account, maybe knew the rough balance in the joint savings she had failed to access, and assumed this represented the readily available cash pie she could grab a large slice of. She probably had no concept of the legal distinction between personal marital funds and properly segregated business operating capital in a sole proprietorship. She had no idea that while she was plotting her raid on the household cookie jar, I had already moved the entire bakery into a bank vault she did not have the combination to. She did not know, because I had followed Sarah's advice. Protect yourself quietly, thoroughly, and hope you never need the protection. So as I sat there in the deepening gloom of my silent workshop, staring at the insultingly low balance in the joint account, rereading her brutal 18-word farewell, the shock and the profound ache of betrayal were absolutely real. The ending of my marriage, the casual cruelty of its delivery, cut deeper than any physical wound. But the financial panic, the crippling fear of ruin she clearly intended to inflict alongside the emotional blow, it simply was not there. It was replaced by a cold, hard certainty, a grim confirmation of my worst fears. She actually did it. She pulled the trigger, and a simultaneous steely resolve. She thinks she just ended the game. She has no idea I already changed the rules. I took another deep, shuddering breath, the familiar scent of old oil and worn tires suddenly feeling less like work and more like solid ground. My ground. I picked up my phone again, fingers steadier now. I forwarded Diane's text message directly to Sarah Jenkins. My own message was brief. Sarah, it happened tonight. Text message. She emptied the joint checking too. Proceed as planned, first thing tomorrow. Then, with a strange sense of detached calm, I deleted the banking app notification showing the $15,500 withdrawal. Let Diane savor her perceived victory for a few more hours. Let her sleep soundly, thinking she had successfully executed her escape plan. Her real wake-up call was scheduled for 9 o'clock sharp tomorrow morning. That night was the longest of my life. Sleep was out of the question. I couldn't face going back to the house, to the empty space where Diane should have been, to the bed we had shared for nearly 3 decades. The betrayal felt too raw, too fresh, so I stayed at the shop, dozing fitfully on the cracked vinyl couch in the office, the smell of stale coffee and transmission fluid, doing little to soothe the turmoil inside. Every creak of the building, every distant siren jolted me awake. I replayed the text message in my head 1,000 times, replayed 28 years of memory searching for clues I missed, moments where the rot might have started. Was it my fault? Did I work too much? Did I take her for granted? The questions circled like vultures, but beneath the grief and self-doubt, a harder core of anger remained. Anger at her deception, anger at her cowardice, anger at her attempt to destroy not just our marriage, but my livelihood as well. Dawn broke gray and bleak over Omaha. I forced myself through the motions, made coffee that tasted like ash, unlocked the bay doors, greeted Mig when he arrived at 7:30, looking concerned. He took one look at my face, the exhaustion, the grim set of my jaw, and knew immediately. "Boss?" Mig asked quietly, setting his lunchbox down. "Something wrong? You look like hell frozen over." There was no point hiding it, not from Mig. He was more than an employee. He was family in a way. Loyal, hard-working, had seen me through countless shop crises over the 15 years he'd worked for me. "Diane left me, Mig," I said flatly, the words feeling heavy and unreal. "Sent me a text last night, said it was over. Cleaned out the joint checking account on her way out." Mig's dark eyes flashed with immediate, protective fury. He let loose a string of rapid-fire Spanish curses that would have made a sailor blush. "Esa mujer, after all these years? A text message? And took the money. Que cabrona. Boss, I am so sorry. What are you going to do? What do you need?" "Got a lawyer," I said, managing a weary shrug. "Already handling it. Just need to keep the shop running today. Keep things normal." "Normal? Nothing normal about this," Mig muttered, shaking his head. "But okay, boss. We work. We keep busy. You need anything at all, you tell me. We got your back here." His simple, unwavering loyalty felt like a small, solid anchor in the swirling chaos. It meant more than he knew. The morning dragged. I tried to focus on work orders, talk to customers about brake jobs and tune-ups, maintain a semblance of professional calm while my insides churned. Every ring of the phone made me jump. Was it her? Her lawyer. My lawyer. At precisely 9:17 a.m., my cell phone buzzed. Sarah Jenkins' name flashed on the screen. I stepped back into the relative quiet of the office, took a deep breath, and answered. "Tom." Sarah's voice was crisp, all business. "Just confirming." The process server delivered the divorce petition and the motion regarding the improper fund withdrawal to Ms. Callahan at her place of employment, the library, approximately 10 minutes ago. According to the server, she appeared visibly shocked and initially refused service before her supervisor intervened. "Okay," I said, gripping the phone tightly. "Okay, so she knows." The countermove was complete. The ball was now definitively in her court, but on my terms. "She knows you filed first," Sarah clarified. "She knows you're immediately challenging the money she took. She doesn't yet know the full extent of the business asset protection we put in place. That discovery will likely come when her lawyer sends us initial financial disclosure requests and receives our response. Expect fireworks then." And fireworks there eventually were, though they took a few weeks to ignite as the legal gears slowly started grinding. First came the predictable angry voicemails from Diane on my personal cell, which I saved but didn't answer, forwarding them to Sarah as instructed. Accusations, threats, demands for her money. Then came the first official communications from her lawyer, a high-priced downtown attorney whose retainer was likely paid for with the very $15,500 Diane had grabbed. The initial letters from her lawyer were aggressive, confident, demanding immediate access to the, now frozen or depleted, joint accounts. Demanding a full and immediate accounting of all business assets, clearly operating under the assumption that Callahan Auto Repair was a marital cash cow ripe for the plucking. They demanded half of everything, plus substantial alimony, painting Diane as a long-suffering wife finally escaping a neglectful workaholic husband. Sarah Jenkins' response was masterful. Calm, factual, legally precise. She acknowledged the divorce filing. She detailed the improper withdrawal of funds from the joint account after the texted divorce notification, formally demanding its return to the marital estate pending court distribution. And regarding the business, she provided the legally required disclosures for my sole proprietorship, including the clear delineation of the protected, restructured business operating accounts, separate from personal marital assets. She included documentation of the shop's modest historical profits, always reinvested back into equipment or used for family expenses, never large personal draws, and my own very reasonable salary drawn from it. The shift in tone from Diane's lawyer after receiving Sarah's response was palpable. The confident aggression turned into confused bluster, then into pointed demands for access to the real business accounts they now suspected existed, but couldn't legally touch easily. They filed motions trying to compel access, trying to pierce the corporate veil, which didn't really exist for a sole proprietorship structured correctly, arguing I had fraudulently concealed marital assets. This was the phase Sarah had predicted. The moment Diane realized her grand financial plan had hit a reinforced steel firewall. The moment she realized the $15,500 she thought was the down payment on her new life was likely the only significant cash she was going to see easily, and even that was now legally contested. I could almost picture the screaming match she must have had with her own lawyer upon learning the truth. She had no idea what was really going on until it was far too late. The divorce dragged on for the better part of a year, marked by contentious exchanges between lawyers, demands for endless documentation, and a couple of tense, unproductive mediation sessions, where Diane alternated between tearful victimhood and spitting rage, refusing to accept the financial reality. Her lawyer tried every trick, attempting to inflate the goodwill value of the shop based on its years in operation, trying to subpoena customer lists, which Sarah fiercely protected as confidential business property, even trying to argue that Diane deserved compensation for emotional distress caused by my secretive financial restructuring, which Sarah countered was prudent action based on Diane's own prior suspicious behavior. It was hell. It cost a small fortune in legal fees, money scraped from the now tightly controlled business account, money I desperately needed for a new diagnostic machine. It caused stress that gnawed at my sleep and my health. There were dark days I questioned if protecting the shop was worth the relentless emotional and financial drain. Maybe I should just give her a bigger chunk to make her go away. But Frank, Mig, and my pride wouldn't let me. "No way, boss," Mig said fiercely one day, seeing the exhaustion on my face. "You built this place. It is yours. You do not let her bully you." Frank was more pragmatic. "Give her an inch now, Bill. She'll take a mile later. Stick to the plan. Lee knows what she's doing." And Sarah Lee did know what she was doing. She meticulously documented everything, countered every motion, and kept the focus squarely on the legal facts. The business was structured properly, the assets protected legitimately based on prior actions. Diane's financial misconduct was clear, and her claims were largely unsubstantiated by law or evidence. Facing a trial where her initial money grab and her lawyer's increasingly desperate tactics would likely be viewed unfavorably by a judge, Diane finally agreed to settle in mediation. The final agreement wasn't the annihilation I sometimes fantasized about in my darkest moments, but it was a clear victory for fairness and for the preservation of my life's work. The divorce decree finalized it. Callahan Auto Repair. Confirmed as my asset, its value largely protected from unreasonable claims. Diane received no ownership or control. Marital property division. The equity from the house sale was divided according to Nebraska's equitable distribution laws. Crucially, the $15,500 Diane withdrew was credited entirely against her share, significantly reducing her final payout. Other retirement funds were split as required by law. Alimony, awarded as minimal short-term transitional support only, reflecting her ability to work and her financial misconduct. It was over. Signing those papers didn't bring joy, just a profound, bone-deep weariness and the quiet satisfaction of having weathered the storm, of having protected what was mine through foresight and resolve. Diane moved out of state, I heard, trying to start over, presumably with far less capital than she had counted on. Her attempt at a clever, financially advantageous exit had blown up in her face, leaving her reputation tarnished and her future uncertain. I felt a brief, grim flicker of satisfaction, but mostly just sadness for the waste of it all, for the 28 years that ended not with dignity, but with deceit and digital daggers. Life now is about rebuilding, not just finances, but trust, mostly in myself. I run the shop. I pay my bills. I maybe work slightly fewer hours trying to find a bit more balance, though old habits die hard. Mig is still here, invaluable as ever, now talking seriously about a potential partnership down the road. That feels good, solid. The house feels empty sometimes, but clean. The betrayal left scars, absolutely. A permanent layer of caution, a reluctance to trust easily. I look at relationships now, even friendships, with a mechanic's eye, checking for leaks, listening for strange noises, understanding the importance of regular maintenance and strong seals. Callahan Auto Repair survived. It stands as a testament not just to hard work, but to the importance of vigilance, of protecting your foundation even when you think the structure is sound. The shop lights are on late again tonight. There is work to be done. Engines need fixing. Life needs moving forward. And I am still here, turning the wrench, making things run. Maybe a little wiser, a little more guarded, but still running.